again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. It's time, y'all. You know, today's the day we are barely going to be finding out or hearing Bryan Kohberger finally take accountability and admit to what he did. Now, this is a change of plea type of deal. A plea deal has been reached with Bryan Kohberger's defense team and the prosecution. This will be presented to the judge, and hopefully, the judge will require more information outside of just "I'm guilty." Welcome to the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, let's break it down. Let's get into it. First and foremost, there's been a couple of, I want to bring up one thing real quick. Let me pull this up real fast. I didn't get a chance to share this last time, but here it is. This is, we got a super chat late in one of the last shows. This comes from Balance Freedom. It says, prosecution and letter to the family, state approached by Bryan Kohberger's defense team. I have been able to confirm that is true, that the state was approached by Bryan Kohberger's defense team. Prosecution said they met with available family last week, weighed the right path forward, and made a formal offer. The state will seek restitution for the victims' families. So, just some, thank you, Balance, for showing your support. And my bad that I couldn't get to it last time. Let me change something really quick, guys. I don't know if I did this or not, but yeah, we're going to find out here in a few minutes. Hopefully they go forward with some more information. At the end of the day, there we go. I had to fix something real quick. All right. So I have it up already. It's going to be going live in about 26 minutes, here on the Idaho's website and their YouTube channel. And so we're just going to wait for that. But in the meantime, in between time, we're going to talk a little bit about some other things that have come down and happened. For instance, Inside Edition has just here recently dropped a pretty big major bombshell stating that one of Murphy's hairs was actually, or fur was found in Bryan Kohberger's Washington apartment. Now, when you go through the search warrant, it does say that there was an animal strand. Inside Edition is confirming now that animal strand did belong to Murphy. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. One of the things that a lot of people that were defending Bryan Kohberger were saying was something to the effect that there was nothing, no DNA, nothing from the house that returned to, with him through the car and in the apartment. And now we find out that that's not entirely accurate. At least one of the animal hairs did come back as Murphy's. Now, I wonder what else that could mean for the car and the apartment. Because at this point, we all just kind of taken Ann Taylor's word for what she said when she said that there was no DNA. And a lot of people took her word, too, when she said that Bryan Kohberger was innocent. Now, she did change her statement and added, right now, or as he sits there, one of the two. But that was in Judge Hippler's courtroom, not necessarily in Judge's courtroom, where she said that they believe that he is 100% innocent, that he's an innocent man, et cetera, et cetera. So those things have been said and done. So when they say that there was no DNA and stuff like that, I now question it, right? Because I remember I remember when she said it, there was like a pause when she said DNA. She said there was no blood in the vehicle or something to that nature. It was either that or blood, and then she said DNA. But the way she said it made me believe that maybe perhaps there was something that was found. And one of the things that I'm going to be predicting that was found was that there was some sort of DNA and blood residue left, but that it wasn't that it was contaminated or that it was corrupted. Either due to the light or due to the sunlight or due to the fact that I believe we're also going to find out once all the evidence is released and stuff like that, that car was cleaned out fairly well, and to the point where they were able to detect cleaning agents in that vehicle. So we're going to find out all these things, hopefully, maybe. I know the state is going to, the state still is going to present a case, so to speak. I'm not sure if that's going to happen today. That might happen when the victim's family members are going to be allowed to do their victim impact statements at the sentencing, I believe is when that's going to happen, which I've kind of heard. I believe it takes about 4 weeks after this is usually when that happens, typically because it sounds like during this time in between when somebody makes a plea deal like this and the sentencing aspect, from what I understand, there should be some conversation with Bryan Kohberger, about the crime, about other crimes he may have committed, those type of things. But we'll see. As of now, the only thing that we're aware of that he's ordered to do is just plead guilty. So hopefully, at the very least, he enforces some sort of accountability on Bryan Kohberger to at least say why, who, when, where, and maybe perhaps even the location of the murder weapon. Because right now, I think there's a lot of people that are still going on with this fantasy that he's innocent. And if all he has to do is say he's guilty, people are going to try to fall back. The pro-burgers are going to try to fall back on, well, there's innocent people that plead guilty, and this is the best he could do for now until they find the real killer. Those type of comments you already know that are probably going to be happening. And so if he was able to state where the murder weapon was and it be found because of his statements, I mean, that would remove all doubt from almost anybody and everybody that is at least looking at this for the truth. If somebody still is defending him after that fact, it's just to be conspiratorial. It's just for views and clicks and things of that nature. So what else are we going to find out today or here in the next couple of days and weeks? Quite a bit, I think. I will just want to let everybody know I will have a guest on this weekend. This guest is currently in that courtroom today. And so somebody from the courtroom will be on the show this weekend. We're still kind of, they had to fly in there. They're not from Boise, so they had to fly there. Depending on when they get back from their flight, could be Saturday evening, could be Sunday. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do everything you guys need to do. That way you guys are notified. Now, last night, there was some other stuff that had kind of came down. And this is with Dr. Catherine Ramsland. This is one of Bryan Kohberger's professors. She was supposed to be a possible witness in the Bryan Kohberger trial. Had it gone, she came under a little bit of, I don't want to say scrutiny, but some folks took it that way, where, including herself, where Howard Bloom had mentioned that he believed that Bryan Kohberger may have become fixated on the professor and maybe perhaps in some form or fashion wanted to either grasp her attention. In my opinion, I think he wanted to stump her. It's kind of like BTK or the Zodiac killer. Their motives behind their crimes weren't to taunt the mainstream media or law enforcement. They had sexually motivated crimes. But they got off on multiple aspects of that. And one of the ways they got off was stumping and talking and reliving their crime through thinking they're smarter than everybody else and trying to stump everybody with what they sent out to the media and things of that nature. Even, for instance, like Rex Humerman, where he, his crime was mainly the sexually motivated aspect of it, but he got off also on terrorizing the family members and the friends of the victims. He would contact their phone number and say things. So just like there's multiple aspects to, why a crazy person does something crazy or a psycho does something psychotic, I think that the why would I don't think it's unbelievable that Bryan Kohberger would have been trying to get off on the fact that he would have, maybe perhaps stumped somebody that he looked very highly to. Now, he purchased the K-bar knife while he was in Pennsylvania. He purchased the balaclava mask while he was in Pennsylvania. He purchased the backpack while he was in Pennsylvania. While he was in Pennsylvania and he was purchasing items for his kill kit, life was at his all-time high. He was graduating with his master's degree. He was recommended to a PhD program. He was going to be starting as a TA across country in a new place. So, a lot of people to say that, well, maybe he was rejected, or maybe perhaps he was, an incel or this or that. And I don't disregard that those could be possibilities. Nobody's come forward to say that they were ever romantic with Bryan Kohberger. But when things were going really, really well for him, he was starting these purchases. Now, everything in his world falling apart, does that add to perhaps maybe why it was that night? The suddenness, things of that nature? Probably. And maybe perhaps it added to the mistakes that he made, the anger that he was withholding, maybe that was an added facet to that. So, I generally believe that he did probably reach out to her, and she said that she hadn't talked to him since he had gone to DeSales, and that he hadn't reached out to her since his arrest. So since he had left DeSales, I apologize. So that means that he had reached out to her while he was at WSU, but she just didn't correspond with him. She didn't respond to him, is the way I took it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what, some of those emails that Howard Bloom had referenced, maybe perhaps there were clips, things like that. But here is Catherine Ramsland. Let's hear for herself what she had to say.
How did you first meet Bryan Kohberger? What classes of yours was he in?
Okay, I want to be just clear that I'm still within the FERPA limitations that protect students and student information. So I will talk within that. I met him in the fall of 2018 when he came to DeSales University. He had an associate's degree and he was going to get into our 4-year program as a psychology major. He selected the forensic track, which made him an advisee for me because I managed the forensic track. And he was also in my class that semester.
And Dr. Ramsland talks about FERPA. I should have mentioned that. There's a law. There is a federal.
So this is interesting because I believe Steve had mentioned that Dr. Ramsland, that there was something that prevented her from writing a book at this point because of the aspect with him being a student. And it seems like that is correct. I Love Tacos asks, can BK request a transfer to PA to serve his time? That's something that I've been questioning as well. I was asking quite a bit in the Discord and some of my my buddies here that are in the Discord that are more understanding of legal aspects of things. And I'm not sure. I haven't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's I haven't come up with an answer that I think is I don't know. It could be, but I don't know. And Annabelle comes in at $4.99 with a super sticker. Thank you guys. Thank you, Inquisit Southern Woman and Addie Slay. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing.
Federal law, I believe, that she is not allowed to talk about certain aspects of a student, their grades, certain parts of their academic life. It's almost like a HIPAA. So she's going to tell us what she can, but unless Bryan Kohberger signs off, she's legally not allowed to talk about certain elements of his academic career. So just keep that in mind if there's some things that Dr. Ramsland.
I don't know why the volume is low.
Your perception of him?
He seemed like eager to be in the classroom. He was polite. He was respectful, intense, and curious. And there was no reason for me to think that he was anything other than someone who was really interested in this potential career.
Was there anything looking back now that was strange about him or that you noticed?
When I look back, there really isn't anything that stood out to me. I think when you're a teacher, your instinct is to accept students at face value. You don't, start with suspicions or.
One of the things about Bryan Kohberger is that he's been self-aware about some of his issues. He talked in the Chapin talk about his lack of feelings and remorse and things of that nature. I think that we got to remember he was 27 years old when the murders happened, 28 when he was arrested. When he was seen in DeSales University, that was what the previous few years before his 27th, so he's probably about mid-20s, 24, 25 years old. And those Chapin talks were when he was a teenager. So he's been well aware for a while. I think he's learned a lot in his time of being self-aware of how his behaviors are and how to behave in certain situations. Now, he wasn't perfect. Obviously, a lot of people had some similar recollections of accounts that they had with him. He was, very creepy stare, intense stare, those type of things. Smarter than everybody, wanted to be smarter than everybody, thought he was at least. Those type of characteristics. So, even him getting the phone numbers and things, it sounds to me that this guy was somebody that was able to put on a mask, that he worked on that mask, and that he accomplished a lot with that mask. And like I said, maybe what was going on in DeSales with all the turmoil and all the things that were going bad, I don't think that that's what caused the murders per se, but I think that may have been why he made so many mistakes, if that makes sense.
And there really weren't any red flags. He was always really quite respectful and grateful. He would thank me for things. He was attentive. He would do the work. I didn't have any concerns.
I think it was 4 classes that you taught him in. What were those classes?
There were 3 undergraduate courses in the forensic track that I taught, and he was in all of them. Well, one was Introduction to Forensic Psychology. Another was my death investigation class, which was called Psychological Sleuthing. And the third one was called Dangerous Minds, the Psychology of Antisocial Behavior. And then he got into the graduate program in criminal justice for a master's degree. And he took a course with me called Behavioral Criminology.
For a guy that I think a lot of people have assumed, including myself, that he is all about himself, that everything has been about him. The classes that she's referring as to about the minds and the thoughts of certain psychos. I lost the word there. Psychopaths. There we go. I wonder if the reasoning behind him taking the courses was more so to learn about himself than it was to learn about other people. Maybe that learning about other people, being in law enforcement, was a part of the mask, and the reality was he was self-indulged and still wanted to learn more about himself. And I wonder if those two things, if that's the possibility there.
Is there anything, Dr. Ramsland, when you look back and you think about the curriculum of those classes, and not getting into his specific experience, but when you think about what you taught in those classes, that you think, oh my gosh, he may have used that in what he's now accused of doing here in Idaho?
Well, the antisocial behavior course involves serial killers and mass murderers, and we do a lot of case analysis. I use two books that I wrote. One was written with the BTK killer, whom you just mentioned, and his decision process and the crimes and how he thought about them and felt about them and what was it like for him, to be caught. So that's a very intense book. And also I have one called
I think, and we've talked about this, but I think that's the book that had highlighted page 118 was the one referencing BTK Dennis Rader. And we read what was on page 118, and it slips in my mind because I've read a lot of them. But I believe that one was the one that talked about how when the media gets a hold of it and, that's a gratification for a person like him when people are talking about the crime. I believe that's what it was.
The Mind of a Murderer, which was about various behavioral experts over the past century who interviewed killers, mass murderers, and serial killers to get as close as possible, spending a lot of time with them to get as close as possible to their process of becoming a criminal. And so he would have been exposed to that.
The hearing starts in about 10 minutes,
now looking
guys.
back, I would look at maybe some of the things that interested him as being, something that gives me pause. But we always have to think about, we all know, everyone in this field, forensic psychology and criminology, know that we could have students who might become offenders. But we also know that the vast majority of our students will not, and will instead go into a field like law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service, that make the world better, that protect us. So we know that there's always a risk that we're attracting somebody who wants to do something terrible. Hoping we won't ever have that, but in my case, I did.
Can you say, Dr. Ramsland, what it was looking back now that sort of raises your eyebrows specifically in terms of things in the class?
I think just the idea of wanting to study offenders and what their thought process was, how they felt about their crimes, wanting to study that, and then finding out that this is a person who then is now saying he's guilty of doing these things. I have to look at the framework of what I taught and wonder, did I inspire him?
Did I inspire him? See, that's one of the things that basically Howard Bloom was saying. Wasn't necessarily that Dr. Ramsland was involved or that she intentionally inspired him. I think he even brought up the situation with President Reagan and the attempted assassination and how his assailant was trying to win the love and affection of Jodie Foster, an actress who had no idea the guy existed. The guy existed. So it was kind of along those lines is what he was saying. A lot of people were kind of taking offense by it, saying, oh, whoa, he's saying something negative about Dr. Ramsland. I don't think he was at all. I think he was just saying that this is a guy who, and like I said, I think that even Dr. Ramsland could have been a victim of his manipulation from Bryan Kohberger. He manipulated her into thinking that he was normal and that he was going to be this amazing guy that was going to be doing great work. And so, he manipulated her into not necessarily like teaching him things, but into not seeing that the red flags, right? And perhaps, things could have not necessarily been different had she seen him, but he had to get over on her if he wanted to complete this. And I mean, this should tell you how much he worked on this mask, because Dr. Ramsland is somebody that's worked with many, many, many offenders, and you would think that this would be somebody who would be able to point it out. Now, one person I do think that was able to see behind the mask or through the mask was John Snyder, professor that worked with Bryan Kohberger at WSU, the same professor that got into a few different arguments with Bryan Kohberger. And he also worked with multiple offenders. I think he was an attorney, I believe, and I think he was even death penalty certified. So he's worked with some of the most violent of offenders, and he and Bryan Kohberger got into it quite a bit.
In some way, did I? But I can't second guess that, because I may have inspired somebody else to become an FBI agent, and that's unfortunately in this field. That's what we live with.
I mean, you've been studying serial killers most of your life, but when you talk about the fact that what you taught may have inspired this, that's got to be hard for you to process, I would imagine.
It's terrible, very hard. And it's not just what happened to the victims. I really thought Bryan Kohberger was a promising student who really could have made a mark in this career, and in a very positive way. I thought that. So disappointed, angry, and very shocked that this is who he turned out to be, and horrified for the victims and their families. Just horrified. I mean, I worked with Dennis Rader closely for 5 years. I met the victims' families. I saw the devastation that these kinds of acts can have, and I have to always keep that in mind when I'm teaching these subjects.
What did you think when you first heard that Bryan Kohberger, your former student, was arrested for this?
I was completely floored. I didn't believe it. And
Folks saying that it's live. Yeah, see, I have it on. As soon as we they start talking, we'll hear something from that end.
demeanor that we saw on media was that he was confident that he was going to be able to prove his innocence. So I wanted to wait and see. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But as months go by and he kept saying that he had an alibi, and I wondered, well, why are you sitting in jail? Give us your alibi, get out. And that wasn't happening. And then it was really when he said his alibi, and it was clearly not an alibi, and he would have known that, certainly from all the classes that he had through undergraduate and graduate work. He would have understood that wasn't really an alibi. I think that was when I was really, floored that this is my student who has done these things.
You mentioned, you studied BTK.
Yeah, that was a
the
weak
serial killer.
alibi.
You met with him many times in prison. This is what you do in a hope to prevent these things from further happening and understand the mind of a serial killer. Would you want to study Bryan Kohberger? Have you put any thought into that? Is that something that you think could be possible?
I've been thinking about that for 2.5 years. I would. This is my work. If he wanted to do that, I would. And within the framework of this is what we do to try to look at developmental trajectories, the triggers, so that we can see the red flags faster. We can prevent people like this from wreaking the havoc that they do. So if he wanted to do that, I know that he's got the intellectual capacity to do it, to be self-reflective, to help think through how his life came to this. And so I would definitely do it if he were willing. And it would be hard. But I think because I have so much material from him, I have questions for him that I think nobody else but me could ask.
And just my last
I don't
question,
know.
Dr. Ramsland,
Maybe.
you are the person that I think of who, if anyone could see through someone and see that they have
She's done a lot of good work, though, so probably.
Because this has been your life's work.
Probably.
And trying to figure that out. And in a sense, it almost feels like Bryan Kohberger even had you fooled.
Well, I study the ones who are really good at it, because I want to really try to understand.
At a certain point, I kind of think she's, kind of stroking that ego of his a little bit.
Because people who are really good at passing as normal and keeping their dark side hidden,
This book
can fool people, can fool all the experts for a long period of time. I think anybody in my field will tell you they can be duped by a really skillful, predatory type of person.
Anybody can be duped by a skillful predatorial type of person. I agree 100%. And, it sounds like because I had Dr. Vona on before, and we've talked about potentially maybe if once all this is over, if, how would somebody interview Bryan Kohberger? And you'd have to go with an approach of stroking his ego to get him to open up, to want to talk to you, to be like, oh, okay, you want to know things about me. You think I'm smart. You think I'm great. And you think I can help and do all these other things. And yeah. That's what it is. Hey, Dr. Vona, I sent you a link. But I do remember that you were having issues when there was, when I share the audio, that sometimes you get echoey, but let me know if you want to jump on. I sent you a link.
So, I'm not going to say I'm the person who can spot this. I can see things like, if you have a rigid personality and you're threatening, those are red flags that are very clear. Or you have a mental instability and you're drawing, violent images. These are things we can see and we can anticipate. But if somebody's presenting,
this is rigid. If you're rigid, that's one of the things that his defense team has been arguing, that he's been rigid, right?
in themselves as a completely normal human being engaged in life the way, that, according to our expectations, it's really hard to see through that. And as a teacher, I am not initially suspicious that students are there for the wrong reasons. And so I think some of us have what I would call a cognitive disadvantage, because we are giving the benefit of the doubt to students. And I think that's certainly what happened. That's
true.
Why I would
That's
want
true.
to work with him and study him, because I want to understand how he was able to completely fool me.
How he was able to completely fool me. stroking that ego, making sure you get the book. Just playing. I mean, that's just what you got to do, in order to get some of these people to come forward. You got to do it. I mean, it's not something that's a surprise or secret, but and I'm just gonna keep it up here. Yeah, the volume was really low. It was, I don't know why it was low, but it was low on that aspect. Hopefully the court hearing isn't that low as well. But again, this is what she does. There's nothing wrong with what, her writing a book. I would expect her to write a book. I'd expect that this book probably be more in depth than anything she's ever written before, because of the personal relationship that she had prior to Bryan Kohberger committing these murders. She has seen him manipulate and has been manipulated by this man in real time without her knowing that was what was going on at that moment. It's one thing to go in and talk to a serial killer like BTK and already know and have a predisposition of the kind of person that he is, know what he's been convicted of, and go in there with thinking that that you need to be guarded. You have that shield up. With Bryan Kohberger, this was somebody who was very smart, very intelligent. Sounds like he was not an issue, in at DeSales University, at least in her classroom. And I think that has probably a lot to do with the fact that he was very fond of the subject, the topic. And I think that he was researching it more for himself than actually trying to be anything else. But in the end, I would expect this book to be very informative. It's not like I don't. And maybe she does also want to see, are there other people that are taking her class with the same motivations that Bryan Kohberger had, to learn, to understand, to get away with, right? To know what police are going to be looking at as far as the investigation aspect goes, and to plan those things out, and even have a search history that, because of his studies, doesn't come off as suspicious. And so, yeah, I was watching the interview room last night, and they were talking about how, oh gosh, I forgot where I was going with that. It was the interview room last night. They were talking about Bryan Kohberger and paying homage to Ted Bundy. And one of the things that I realized when they were talking about it is that, yes, and I believe it was Chris McDonough, he mentioned that Bryan Kohberger was playing cosplay when he saw the Ted Bundy thumbnail, and he put on the hoodie. That picture with him in the headphones, a lot of people have said that's very similar and very eerily to, well, one, Bundy when he did the thumbs up picture, and two, with the headphones and stuff, very similar to Patrick Bateman. Now, I think this guy has been searching for, somebody to relate to himself for a very long time. When he talked about with that girl from Tinder or whatever, and he said something about birthing hips, that was from a movie. The cosplay with Ted Bundy and putting on the hoodie and stuff like that, trying to resemble the thumbnail in some form or fashion. The thumbs up picture. Could that be Patrick Bateman, who was 27 years old at the time of that movie, when that movie occurred, which is the same age that Bryan Kohberger was when these homicides had occurred? If you go and listen to the first part of Patrick Bateman's monologue, he talks about wearing a mask. He talks about how he has no feelings for people and none of these things. Like it sounds eerily similar to what Bryan Kohberger wrote in his Tappa Talk. Very similar to what he wrote in the Tappa Talk. And if you look at in that scene with Patrick Bateman, he's taking a shower at one point, and he's putting on this mask, and he's putting on all these soaps and stuff. And as he's removing the mask that he put on, he's talking about not having feelings and stuff, basically removing the figurative mask as well at the same time, to show that, yes, this mask is what you see, but it's not who I am. And if you look at that picture where Bryan Kohberger's giving the thumbs up at, his face looks like weirdly smooth. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a list of items that he purchased if they would have matched what Patrick Bateman had put out. You know, it's I recommend, if you guys have not seen American Psycho, to watch it and just kind of think, like, if you had because this came out in 2000, so you know Bryan Kohberger would have been like what, 6 or so when the movie came out. Who knows when he may or may not have seen it? I don't know, but if he did, and that had some sort of impression on him, as far as I have these same feelings. I lack remorse. I lack emotion. Could I be like this person? And him write about it and stuff like that. So he seemed like he expressed himself or liked those type of things. I mean, he even had a small rap song or verse that he did. And so, which I think was pretty telling as well, as far as the type of person that he was, what he was struggling with. Called himself the devil. It's very interesting. Now we're still waiting, guys. Nothing's happened yet. We're live, but the court has not opened. We got to thank Jeannie Garcia for being a member for 6 months. Thank you. We have Balance Freedom. Thank you. Body language expert. Highlight clips of BK and signs of heightened anger when Xana mentioned compared to the other victims. He blames her for leaving that sheath. No true justice can ever be accomplished. That's interesting. You know, that's interesting. Because the way I think that this went down, and like I said, Inside Edition broke it down that they broke that apparently the dog hair that was found in Bryan Kohberger's Washington apartment belonged to Murphy. So how does this all play or play, right? So we know that there was no blood found on Murphy, and that the doors to the house were open, whether it be the back sliding glass door was open, Kaylee's room was open, Maddie and Maddie's bedroom was open, and so was Xana's room. I said the document, in court documents, it stated that all the rooms to the decedents were open, and so there was no blood. So that tells me that Murphy wasn't in the room during the commission of the crime, right? Because we've seen pictures from outside of the house that look inside where you can see drywall was taken out. And that's from flinging of blood splatter. And so because of that, and because of the small proximity of the room and how small it was, I highly doubt that Murphy was in that room during the commission of the crime. Now, was he in Kaylee's room? I think it's possible. Well, let me back up a little bit. Another reason why I don't think he was in there is that, was he in there before the crime started? So did Bryan Kohberger open the door, Murphy was in there, and then run past him? Well, what do we know? We know that Xana's room, that Xana's on TikTok till 4:12 a.m. Bryan Kohberger is parking at the rear of the property just after 4:07. So that's about 5 minutes there. 4 to 5 minutes. That's quite a bit of time. In fact, law enforcement was able to time the entire, scenario. If he would have just walked in there and committed the crime, every stab wound based on the injuries and blood splatter, and at maximum was 4 minutes. So he was doing something. So him going in there, it's 4 minutes after that he goes in there, that Xana gets off of her phone. Now, Dylan hears who she thinks is Kaylee go up the stairs with Murphy and then down the stairs and saying, I think someone's here. So for her to go upstairs with Murphy, that means Murphy would have had to have gone downstairs first, gone into Xana's room and alerted her. So if we were to go back to the beginning where we're saying, all right, Bryan Kohberger opened the door to Maddie's bedroom and Murphy ran out, that's a weird situation to be in, right? Because Murphy wasn't in there during the commission of the crime. If he ran out, who's he running to? You know what I mean? You're really risking, if you go in there and attack, that somebody's going to come up the stairs behind you. So I strongly suspect that Murphy was in Kaylee's room. Now, at first I thought maybe perhaps Bryan Kohberger went into Kaylee's room first, or opened the door, looked in, didn't see anybody. Maybe Murphy was on the floor or something. And then he ran out to Xana's room during the commission of the crime, and Bryan Kohberger never even knew he was in there. Only problem with that is the body cam footage based on documents indicate that when law enforcement went into Kaylee's room, Murphy was on the bed. So I would assume that that was something that was common for Murphy, that he would have been on the bed had Bryan Kohberger opened the door. And if he saw a dog in there, I would have assumed that he would have either closed the door. I know that he's not touching things more than he has to, but I'm thinking that's probably what happened there. So what does that leave? That leaves that Bryan Kohberger probably went into. Also, the other thing too is I forgot that if he would have gone to Kaylee's room first, Murphy would have ran past him, ran down the stairs into Xana's room. Would she have gotten off the phone at 4:12, or would that have been closer to 4:10 or 4:09 had that scenario happened? Had it been the first step? The fact that it was 4:12 tells me that it was the second aspect. So what this tells me is that he went straight into Maddie's room, committed the murders, and then he went to check on Kaylee's room. Unsure if somebody was in there. There's no way he would have known. It was dark. It was hard to see. It's very unlikely he would have known that the person whose life he took next to Maddie was Kaylee, and or the person that should have been in that other room. That could have been any of the roommates in the house. That could have been somebody visiting. You know what I mean? So he's probably thinking he has to check because of the commotion with the next door, the bedroom next door. So he goes to that door, opens the door. Murphy probably has heard this commotion, is probably at the door. And so when he opens the door, Murphy runs out past him and down the stairs towards Xana. Now, who's he running to? How far is he running? Is he running down to the first floor? There's a lot of things that can happen there. And he ran right. I'm assuming Murphy just bolted right by him. So my thoughts are that Bryan Kohberger probably stayed upstairs at that point, waiting to see if somebody's going to come back upstairs with Murphy, and who that somebody's going to be. Maybe get ready for an attack, something of that nature, right? And the person that's coming up the stairs, unfortunately, is Xana. And I think as she's walking there, she may even see the backsliding glass door was still open. Now, we know that the backsliding glass door was still open because during the same moment that the altercation is happening in Xana's room, Murphy starts barking outside. And the only way he could have been outside is if the backsliding glass door was open. So she turns around, says, "I think someone's here," and she runs towards Ethan. Murphy runs outside. Bryan Kohberger probably obviously goes after Xana. I think at that moment, there's a confrontation at some point where she turns around and sees him. And I think Kohberger says, "It's okay, I'm here to help," as some sort of false pretense, false sense of security, so to speak. And then he attacks her. Now, I know a lot of people are think a lot of things about Dylan and Bethany and stuff, but there was audio from 50 feet away, and all it picked up was a thud, picked up some dog barking and some voices. Doesn't pick up the sounds of anybody screaming or anything like any of those things, or kicking or whatever. None of those things. And it sounds like, oh, here we go, guys. He is not in orange. He is in a suit. And here we go.
All right, this is CR 0124316665. Defendant is present in custody with counsel, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, and Miss Taylor, Miss Massoff, Ms. Barlow. The state's present with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Jennings, and Mr. Nye is here as well. Am I miss anybody? I'm sorry.
Ms. Allen is here as well.
Ms.
Your
Allen
Honor.
is here as well. Very well, thank you. All right, we are here today to entertain a change of plea. Before I start, I want to address some issues of concern and otherwise. First, I appreciate everybody in attendance today being on their best behavior. Please, no outbursts or demonstrations. Any such conduct will result in immediate removal and may result in an inability to attend further court proceedings in this case. I want to point out that there have been calls by some for the public to contact me and my office in an attempt to influence my decision-making in this case. This has been extraordinarily disruptive for court staff and the ability for them to get work done, not only in this case, but in other cases where defendants are entitled to have their cases processed, and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases. It's also highly inappropriate. A court is not supposed to, and this court will never, take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases. Courts should, and I always will, make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff. Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement. I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this, because again, it is not appropriate and frankly not something I would take into account when deciding a matter in a case like this. I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers, what the court's duties are, and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether, as well as what penalties to ask for, and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July with the questionnaire process in mid-July. It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this, getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly. And so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave. Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment: burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count. So theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak for itself, will be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well.
They should have asked for the murder weapon. They should have asked for so much more.
All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights,
think yes.
defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter?
They're not even going to ask him these questions. They're going to let his lawyer answer.
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger.
Okay,
I'm
here
going
we
to
go.
ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible.
Maybe he is going to ask
Your
questions.
statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include, on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with, that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Is anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right.
That was really weird, man. You know, to hear him say you guilty because you are guilty, and he's I mean, we've all known he's been guilty, but that was a
as to
surreal
count one
moment.
burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior
Gift
to
card.
the purchase
Told
of
you
the
guys.
knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho.
Dateline was right.
I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include at trial video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across.
That echoes on their side.
From Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling
The echoes on their side.
King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogen's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Kernodle was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well.
Who's this? Staring right at Kohberger.
Suffered multiple wounds.
Is that Xana's dad?
State for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walenta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in a very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and
could have asked him
to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicle seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Mogen's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court and the public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings.
I guess Inside Edition got it wrong.
The defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. You can try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Mr. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully.
Well, you could have asked him that too.
Premeditation and with malice forethought. Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. Obviously, we have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties or the next week, the week of August 4 is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing. So,
oh, come on, dude.
Time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
You had an opportunity to ask questions, and you didn't want to ask
No
questions.
objection for the order to remain in place through
All right.
sentencing.
I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant.
I don't like that at all,
bond is ever
guys.
set For the defendant, were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated.
trial
and those
is-
4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So
Thank you.
that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned. All right, please.
Unbelievable. Welcome to you're on mute. I don't know if you want to stay on mute. Welcome to the show, Dr. Vona. How's it going?
Oh my gosh, you guys. So they did exactly what I was afraid that they were going to do. He literally did not, like, that was horrifying in my opinion. I don't feel like we learned anything. I thought we were going to at least learn something.
I agree. You know, I will say this though. After the presentation by Bill Thompson, I'm kind of leaning more towards that the plea deal aspect of it was the right decision. I was a little
because
concerned.
they didn't have a case.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like a strong case.
Unbelievable, Daniel.
You know, I'm not saying, I mean, with what they have is very strong. Don't get me wrong. It's obvious that he did it, you know, but I've been saying this for some time, like that there are other cases that have had more evidence in, and they got not guilties. Karen Reed is one of them. P. Diddy apparently just was found like not guilty on majority of the bigger crimes. I think the only ones that he was found guilty for was the transportation of prostitutes. And so he's probably going to get time served and probation.
Wow. And so this is like a reflection of our society, I think, right? Like, why? That means that there's people that are identifying in some way. I don't know. We give too much of the benefit of the doubt. I don't get this. I feel like this was so clear. I'm like so disappointed. I feel so bad for the victims' families. I feel like I could cry for them.
Yeah. And, you know, just with like P. Diddy getting off on what he did and all the evidence that was there, given the presentation by Bill Thompson, I would have been concerned in this trial. I would have been concerned. I mean, I think the guy did it. There's no doubt in my mind he did it. But I would have been concerned that it wouldn't have been a strong case. Like, you know, he seemed, I mean, he showed some emotion at the end when he kind of sounded like he was tearing up. You know, I don't necessarily know if that was an act or if that was real. I'm going to go ahead and I don't know the guy, so I'm going to take him for his word and say that was real. But, you know, outside of that, it was very blah.
Lackluster, totally. He gets to retire now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I just felt like there could have been more. And then like the unanswered questions, like where the murder weapon was, or if there was more than one target, you know, who all, well, you had an opportunity to have those questions answered. They
could have at least asked that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Wow. Those poor families all took off, did all this stuff. And I feel like they went there and learned nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like there was anything. So you're right. Like maybe this was like, maybe the victims' families will at least be like, wow, we didn't learn anything new. Like, you know, except for Murphy's hair. That was,
that apparently didn't even happen.
Oh, you guys, then maybe it was a better idea for them to do it. But in my eyes, that's almost like shame on the prosecution for not building more of a case. I feel like there was more things that they could have. I don't know. I'm so disappointed with this.
I think Dateline presented a better case.
Yes. 1,000%. Dateline, literally everything that was there. No wonder why the judge was so mad. Dateline literally put the entire case out there.
Exactly.
We were all like, oh, there's got to be other stuff we just don't know yet. Nope.
Yeah. And I know that statement wasn't the entire case, but that was basically what they were saying is the facts that proved that he was guilty. And they didn't have much. They had that he cleaned his car, which we are all aware of. You know, he had 6 weeks to do so. He had the study and the intelligence and the know-how and the classes and forensics and stuff like that. And no surprise, they find a bucket next to his car inside the garage, like I had been saying. You know, I had been basically kind of alluding to the fact that I felt that his parents were maybe perhaps aware of something. You know, maybe perhaps they didn't know that he committed the crime, but that they probably had some inkling that he may have. You know, I think Steve, I saw it somewhere, said that he was saying something on the court steps that we know when your flight records were. I think that was referencing Bryan Kohberger's father.
Ooh, what about what the judge said in the beginning about calling and stuff?
Oh yeah, well that was
I feel like that was
because
unnecessary. I know what it was because Steve was saying if anybody is upset with it, but I'm like,
yeah.
why would he? Was that really necessary? I mean, maybe at the end say, I don't know. I just felt like he started it off with like, and then the whole thing with, I see you're trying to respect me. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was weird. That was very, very Ted Bundy-ish. Remember at the end of his
Yes.
trial, and the judge was like, "You would have been a good,
Did anybody
person in my
notice
courtroom."
that he made like he just was like, yeah. Like he wasn't. I would have been like, like nothing, not one bit of emotion, not one bit of guilt or remorse, nothing.
Yeah,
we got nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just. I know that the victim statements, which we're gonna stream that live. It sounds like it's gonna be July 22nd. It sounds like to me that those victim statements, they're going to be impactful, and they're going to have the opportunity to explain their distrust in the system, the disdain for the system, and how they've been taken advantage of, how this gag order that still continues.
Unbelievable.
It continues to this. Oh my gosh. The guy's already pled guilty, released the information.
So does that mean that even if we FOIA something, we can't get it?
We can. It's just not going to be released until after July 23rd.
Oh, okay.
So we need to get on that. Some stuff, I assume. Some things won't, like victims, pictures of the victims and things of that nature.
Oh, I have a question for you. When he said about the sentencing and he said that each one, first of all, why was it $50,000 or whatever for burglary and $5,000? Did I hear that right for the murders?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, did he say that like there was a I don't know if I felt this way, but I felt like there's a possibility he could do 40 years.
No. So what had occurred was, or what had happened was, that was the maximum sentence there, right? But part of the plea deal is that he's not going to get out.
Okay. Are we
like
sure?
There's aspects of like the normal sentencing, which would be life with a minimum of 10 years. But because of the plea deal, they agree that they're not going to appeal and that he's not going to get out. It's I think they're consecutive, so they go back to back to back.
Okay, so the minimum though for each one is 10 years. So if they're consecutive, that could be 40 years.
Right, but I think that part of the plea deal was
I'm hoping that
he
it
doesn't. Yeah, he didn't.
You know what else I don't like? The fact that Hitler said about how the impact, like the statements and stuff from the public, that doesn't come into his thought process. I was like, really? Isn't that the point? So like that would make me feel like, is my victim impact statement going to make an impact if what outside says doesn't sway your decision in any way?
Well, the judge said the only thing he can do is make it less, and I don't think that's going to happen. And so it's more of a schematic thing than anything else at this point.
And then that way he looks fair because he's saying, you know what I mean? I hope, I don't know what I hope. There's nothing to hope anymore. I feel like this was just so lackluster.
I agree. I got a couple live super chats really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Let me move this over real quick to my other screen that's bigger. There we go. Now I can read.
I rescheduled that appointment today, Daniel, so I'm not in a rush anymore.
Okay, good deal. I had a mechanic come over, try to help me with my car, and that got rescheduled too because of everything. So I'm good as well. Rhymes with Anaconda says, Daniel, his dad told the cop that pulled him over they were going to the Poconos. He wanted them to know. Maybe. I mean, I think that in the end, it sounds like to me, and this is my speculation, right, that the purchase for the flight to Pullman had occurred after the Bolo came out. Now, JLR had reported a long time ago that Bryan Kohberger's sister apparently had phoned in the FBI with her concerns. I'm guessing because at the time of that phone call, the only thing that the sister would have been able to say is just like, hey, my brother drives a car like this and he's creepy. I mean, there's not much that she could have probably said that could have given him more information because she was somewhere else. She wasn't in his presence or view. And so maybe that's why that bit of information also didn't come out today. Because I was thinking about that, like, why didn't he bring up that the sister? But the sister's, if it's true, what JLR put out there, that the sister had reported something, then it obviously wouldn't have been something that she had firsthand knowledge of. and or also something that was in her presence or view, because I think he was still in Washington while they were still on the East Coast.
So in other words, they would have considered it hearsay and therefore not able to say it.
I just don't think that it would have been presented in this aspect.
Gotcha.
You know, as far as making the case for as to why he's guilty. I think it was shortened. It was summarized, so to speak. Then if, you know, had we had a full trial and this was closing argument, it would have probably been about an hour and a half on its own. You know what I mean?
Don't you feel like they should have given the family that though?
Yes. I think they should have been able to have lined it out and said, this is why we believe that he is guilty.
Yeah, like at least make up for, you know, them feeling, you know, that they did them wrong. At least like give them the information they're looking for.
Yeah, they basically only said what was in the PCA, that we found DNA and it matched back to his. And
yeah, there was nothing new.
Mm-hmm. Didi Fuentes comes in with $49.99. Thank you so much. Just thank you. We appreciate your support. Rhymes with Anaconda comes in with a $10. If Brian's dad did suspect him, and that's why he drove back with him, he told the cops when he pulled them over they were going to the Poconos. He wanted the cops to know. I think his father probably had some sort of false sense of security when Brent Kopaka passed away. When his life was taken by SWAT, he was threatening his roommates. It happened fairly close. I wouldn't be surprised if he thought, oh, okay, this is the explanation. This is what really happened. This is who really committed that crime. You know,
for sure, because then that would mean it wouldn't be his son.
Exactly. I think he's looking for every explanation possible to exclude his son. C Minor comes in with $4.99. Xana never went to the third floor. She'd have time to scream. Sheath was found partially under Maddie. I think Xana caught BK coming down the stairs. I mean, it's possible. I just think that Dylan heard who she thought was Kaylee going up and down the stairs right there. Now, I don't think maybe she didn't go all the way up the stairs. I concede that aspect, but I think that she did go partially up the stairs because Dylan heard her and Murphy go down. And as she was going back down, she say something to the effect, somebody's here.
Could it be that he keeps clinching? I feel like I do catch, somebody said it earlier that like he'll clinch his jaw and stuff when they say Xana's name. I'm thinking about it. Could that be like, could he be extra mad about that? Because it's almost like if she didn't interrupt him, he might have grabbed the sheath and then he might not have gotten caught.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the reason why is I think he'd already left Maddie's room. Because
so you don't think she
because
interrupted
of Murphy.
Gotcha.
See, Murphy had to have, in order for Murphy to go downstairs, in order for Murphy to go upstairs with Xana and then to go back downstairs with Xana, he would have had to have gone downstairs first, you know, to have alerted them. So,
gotcha.
My thoughts are he went into Maddie and Kaylee's room. Now we know that Murphy didn't have any blood on him, and so he wasn't in the room during the commission of the crime. So either one or two things happened. Either Bryan Kohberger opened the door and Murphy ran by him, which puts you in a weird position because now you have two people asleep and a dog running somewhere. He could alert somebody else, and now you're in a weird position where you could be taking somebody's life and somebody coming right up behind you. You know, I mean, I don't know that aspect of the dog running out. I think that would kind of make somebody hesitant to go in there and commit the crime. So my thoughts are also because of the timing. He parked back there at around 4:07, right? We did
learn where he parked.
Yeah, we did learn where he parked, and we know that he parked back there about 4:07. And so Xana's on her phone till 4:12. So that's about 5 minutes there. Granted, he has to go in and up the stairs. I think that if he would have opened the door and Murphy ran out right away, then that would have, you know, Xana would have gotten off her phone closer to 4:09, 4:08, maybe 4:10, the latest, not 4:12. So what that tells me is that he went into Maddie and Kaylee's room, or Maddie's room first. Then he went to Kaylee's room thinking, not knowing if somebody's in there, because the person in Maddie's bed could have been another roommate. It could have been somebody that doesn't live in the house. It could have been a number of people. There could have been somebody in Kaylee's room. So he went to go and check. He opens the door. Murphy runs out past him. So, and then Murphy runs downstairs to get to Xana. So he had already left Maddie's room and left knife sheath behind, in my opinion.
So what do you think he was doing? Just like chilling in the hallway, waiting to see if anybody heard him?
Yeah, I think he
That makes
probably,
sense.
if you look at the way the door, the stairway is, when you go up onto the third floor, to your left is Kaylee's room, right? And so he probably, when he opened the door, the dog probably bolted out. He probably backed up a few steps closer towards Maddie's room and just kind of peeked around the corner and kind of looked down until he saw somebody coming up to see who it was. It's probably in an area or in a position so that way he could attack somebody if they were coming up. And when he saw that it was Xana and maybe saw her turn around saying, I think someone's here, she probably saw the back sliding glass door open. You know, that gave him the confidence to go down and attack her, knowing that who it was and that he would have the surprise on her. And so because Murphy's outside also during the barking, tells me the back sliding glass door was open the entire time. That's probably what gives Xana the first thought that somebody's in the house.
I understand. They didn't mention anything about like how any of them, like where they were attacked or anything. I did notice that. They just said, and they didn't even do it one at a time at one point. He like named all the victims and said, do you agree that you murdered all of them? I was like, wait, what? Like, you're not even doing them one at a time? Like at one point he did at the end, but like when he, I don't know, the whole thing was just like, what?
Yeah, and I noticed when he said the burglary aspect, he goes, yes, guilty. And then the other ones, he was kind of, because I think that
he had like a girly voice or something. I don't know.
Well, maybe, yeah, but I think that, is it possible that he didn't have a person per se, and that his sole goal was just to break into the house and take the lives of people?
Yeah, possibly. But I think that they showed that he was there enough times to know, because he went to the third floor first, which is actually quite weird, right? Because if you have 4 people underneath you, you would think that you would like, you know, neutralize the one floor and then go upstairs, because if you're upstairs, it's almost like you would get stuck. Although he could have jumped off the balcony if he had to. But do you see what I mean? So I feel like that makes me feel like he went up to the third floor because he had one or both of those girls in his mind.
You see, one of my first thoughts early on was the fact that maybe perhaps part of his motivation was to create a high-profile crime that nobody could solve. And
oh, of course, that's what it was. He wanted to be the teacher and he wanted to do what Dr. Kathleen Ramsland did, but he one-ups her because he didn't just write books. He actually did it and got away with it. So now let's just try to solve it. I absolutely think that's what he was going to do. And now that didn't work out, he's going to do the second best thing in his head and plead guilty so that he can talk, because I thought about it last night. And if he does all the appeals and stuff, he's not going to be able to talk. They're going to tell him, the defense, you cannot talk. So now he can't talk for 30 years, and then he only gets to talk right before he gets executed, if that's the case. So this way, he's in jail, but he gets to talk. He gets to all the things.
Yeah. No, I brought that up, I think, last night. I was saying that
it's awful.
That I think that played a role into why he pled guilty, because if he's found guilty, he still can't say anything about it until his appeals go through. And that's going to be a long time. C minor, caught him down the stairs. Yes.
And just like I was saying too, he did not give us anything, so that I feel like not only did he regain the narrative, but now he still has the story. So it's like, I still know more than all of you do. So that gives him power over the families. And it's almost like he can just drip out a little bit at a time when he wants to get people reinterested in the case again, when he feels like it's starting to go, away. This is maddening.
Yeah. D Fuentes comes with $19.99. Thank you so much, Dee. DD, I appreciate your support today. Hey, would you please speak to the Amazon gift card reference knife? You called that. I did. I called that a long time ago. I said that he purchased that. I also said, and which is kind of unfortunate, but that it didn't come out. But I said that they found that purchase through his Fire Stick. That there was a purchase through the Fire Stick that they found in his apartment complex, and that it tracked back to an Amazon gift card. I also thought that it was kind of be something that was going to be similar to like Rex Humerman and how he got caught with the burner phones, where he utilized, I think, cash and gift cards as well. And they were able to track down those purchases and look at video surveillance of him purchasing the burner phones. I strongly suspect that had this gone all the way, we probably would have seen video of him purchasing a gift card.
I agree. Do you think, like, they definitely didn't say who they thought the target was, which I think like that's always going to be a mystery now too. And I think that's another thing that he has over everybody. Like, you guys didn't even find out who my target was.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I thought they could have asked him.
I know there was a lot of things they could have asked. I can't believe they didn't ask any of the things. Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. C minor goes, never understood why you think Murphy left the room. Door was closed. Not a puppy barked on CCTV. He would have laid down besides Kaylee's body. That wasn't the case. All the doors were left open. We have some court documents that indicate that all the doors to the decedent's rooms were left open, including Kaylee's room was left open. She was seen when they came into the room or in the house. Officers found Kaylee's dog on the bed, sitting on Kaylee's bed. My assumption is that he was terrified and he probably heard all the noise and the commotion that happened in Maddie's room, and that's the reason why he didn't want to go in there. Dogs are, maybe not as intelligent as human beings, but they understand what death is, and I think I think he understood what had occurred. I think he was frightened. I think he was scared.
And he went to where he felt safe.
Exactly. And we also know that he was able to get in and out because there was CCTV footage.
Oh, that is right.
From the next door, from the neighbor's house that recorded the dog barking at 4:17 a.m. And that dog barking was from a dog that was outside. And so they state that if it was Murphy, then he had access to go in and out. The back sliding glass door was open throughout the entire night. So he was able to get out. Now, I don't think Kaylee's room was always open. I find that to be odd that Kaylee would leave a puppy in her bedroom with the door open with roommates and throughout the middle of the night where the dog can go out there and create some issues or cause accidents or whatever the case may be. So that tells me, and also given that the fact that Xana was on the phone till 4:12 a.m. and that Dylan heard Xana go up and down the stairs with Murphy, that made me to believe that there's a good chance that the killer opened that door. Mm-hmm. And it happened around 4:10, 4:11, 4:12, and Murphy ran downstairs, got Xana, and Xana's like, all right, I'm going to take you back upstairs. And yeah. And then we have Christy with a $5 super chat saying, what respect, not even your honor. Also, why is this gag order still in place? Family still won't know everything unfair. I agree. I thought that was a bad move to keep everything gagged. But I think that falls surely on the shoulders of the prosecution. The lack of questioning falls on the shoulders of the prosecution, not on the judge. To me, I saw a weak prosecutor.
Me too. Absolutely. Do you think, to her point, do you think though after sentencing we will get access to that stuff?
It sounds like that's going to be the case.
And if so, why would you wait until after? Like, wouldn't you want to know? Like, now that's going to impact them in ways. You know what I mean? Isn't that the whole point of an impact statement? Like, I don't know. The whole thing is just crazy.
I agree. I don't understand what you're protecting anymore.
No, me either. Give these families something so that they could grieve.
He even said he accepted the plea. The judge accepts it. So he's taken away his suit. So his
will we see him in a jumpsuit?
We're going to see him in orange the next time we see him.
Good.
The way we should have been. Nessie Burns comes in with 1999 super sticker. Thank you so much, guys. We truly appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Angelus comes in with 1999 saying, based on where we know how he parked, he had a bird's eye view into Maddie's bedroom. I was a young college girl once upon a time, and I never would have considered closing my blinds. I think that's why Maddie was a target.
Me too. I thought about it, and I'm like, at first I was like, why didn't they ever close their blinds? And then I'm like, I'd never closed my blinds.
Yeah.
You just don't think about it.
Yeah. No, yeah, you definitely don't. And you can see right in there. And I think everybody can assume that that's probably where the targeting came from. We found out, I mean, the Dateline already told us, but we found out July 9th was the first time that he was in the
pool party.
Well, that was the same day as the pool party. The only thing that's weird about that, though, is there was a lot of people there. Tons of people there. There was video, there was pictures. People are on social media all the time. Dayline was unable to find one of the victims in the background or anything there. What do you think about that?
So he could have went to the pool party and then taken pictures of, because didn't he have pictures of like other people that the girls were friends of?
Uh-huh.
So he could have just been driving around and that's when he's seen them. Who knows? Like if they were outside hanging out, all dressed up. You saw how they dress nice even in the day. Like they always look beautiful. It seemed like you know, so maybe he could have just been driving around and saw them and then saw the house. And like the prosecutor did say about his paper that he wrote and how he would have had the knowledge. So I feel like if he had the knowledge of afterwards what to do, he probably had the knowledge of what people do beforehand too. So maybe that's how he found them, was after the pool party he went browsing.
See, that was one of the things, my initial first theory ever was that this guy wanted to commit this crime, that this was more about the crime itself and him feeling and his feelings about the crime. I think that he wanted to prove everybody wrong. I thought that he was, wanted to probably get back at young ladies and also at the system that rejected him as a criminal justice student. Pullman rejected him. The area rejected him. So he was well aware that he wanted to commit a crime like this. And well, he couldn't do it to somebody he knew or to the people there because that would tie back to him. So he went out there and looked for the house with the biggest party that had female residents because he would be looking for the perfect crime. And perfect scenario. And you have a situation where you have a house full of young ladies, attractive young ladies who would, with a mass murder type of situation with a mystery surrounding it would be a huge possibility of turning into a high profile crime. That's why he didn't care about Kaylee's new car. He didn't care about Ethan being there because the goal was for it to be a high profile crime. And the more people that were there and the more people that lost their lives, the bigger the case was going to be.
Yep. And there's that one video that he posted at one point, like this was before the crimes, where it's like very violent. I'll have to send it to you if you never saw it. And at the end of it, the guy's like all bloody and the cops are there and he has like a big smile on his face. Like he feels like if anybody didn't see it, you have to look it up. It's crazy. So if you just look up Bryan Kohberger in that video, it should come up somewhere. But I feel like in that sense, I'll have to send to you then. I feel like that's exactly what he's doing here. I feel like it's him just being he did not look like he felt one bit of guilt or remorse at all. And my thing is, it had to be somewhat of what the prosecution said, or he would have corrected it. So I'm sure there's a million things he didn't say, but I mean, the things that were said. So like, in other words, if Xana was first, I think that would have been corrected before today, I would think. So
well, they had a document that Bryan Kohberger signed that said factual background or something to that nature. Did you catch that?
I did.
I wonder if that has what we're looking for, and if that will be released.
Is that something that could be for you?
I think so. I think that's actually. I'm hoping that's something that will be released on the Idaho website, since it's a court document that he signed. I would like to go through that. I'm definitely going to go through that. Guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You guys know what to do, because when those things go out, we're going to be covering those things. We need to get working on that FOIA for that traffic stop.
I will. I'll look into it too.
Awesome. Before we call it a show and stuff, overall, what are your final thoughts? Your feelings on how this went down today?
I feel like he regained control of his story and he's now getting to write the end of his story. I don't think that they really thought I'm sure they thought this whole thing through. That's just me saying. But I feel like in the sense of psychology, he's now regained the story or the narrative. He gets to write the end of his own story just like he wants to. And I feel like he looked like he was like relieved today almost. I don't know if you noticed, like his hair even looked different. Like he looked like he was like calm, like chill, which to me is just so disgusting, because that just means that, again, there's no guilt and remorse. I think more than ever that he's a psychopath and has a narcissistic personality. I think I was completely right about that all along. And I think he showed that today, right? Like when he was just like, yes, like not even like, he didn't even seem like he was embarrassed. Like I don't know.
That's a good point.
It's almost like somebody said, "Is this your $100 bill?" And you were like, "Yep, that's mine." Like I felt like he was claiming it. That's what I was trying to say, claiming it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just crazy.
It was. It really was. And the guy's a psychopath. You're 100% correct, in my opinion. He's also a murderer, and now nobody can
call him one.
Nobody can guilt anybody for calling him that anymore, because he is one now.
He's a murderer. Yes.
And I wonder how they'll frame this story now, the Kohbergers. But in the end, I think he's going to be serving 4 life sentences. Did you see Dr. Ramsland's interview?
Yeah. And speaking of, we have to do a live. I want to look up those 4 classes that he took just to see exactly what the course description says. But we need to do a live on those 4 classes, because that does say a lot to me. He took criminology. He took behavioral criminology. So he definitely knows a thing or two about. And the thing I noticed was, did you notice she said that in the course that it was about the things that they were thinking before, during, and after? Isn't that exactly what his questionnaire is?
Yeah. What did you think about my thoughts on that? I had said that after learning about the classes that he took, that criminology, or the classes that he took, wasn't ever to learn about other people as much as it was to learn about himself.
1,000%. We see this in psychology all the time. People that take psychology or that wind up switching over to psychology, it is not abnormal, including myself, to try to be figuring out like your own self too. And again, there's a big range. It's like goes from just trying to figure yourself out to like pathological, which I think he was more along the lines of pathological. I think he wanted to see, because again, you guys, he says it in his own words from his Tappa talk. He's like, I feel like a felon, but where's my record? Or I feel like a criminal, but where's my record? So like, he's always identified as that criminal. I feel like this just gave him insight. And Dr. Ramsland says that too, right? She's like, we hope that nobody's going to use our stuff, but we have to know that somebody could. And in my case, it happened to me. And I was like, it did.
Yeah, that definitely did.
And there is a FERPA thing, you guys. So she's not lying about that. So if when my students come in my chat on my channel, I don't ever say like, I won't be like, oh, that's my student, so-and-so. I wait until they're like, Dr. Vona, whatever you said in class or whatever. And then I'll say they're my student. So there is a FERPA law where we can't just like be like, oh, Daniel took me for abnormal psych and he got an A. Like, that's really not cool. I mean, You're not going to get on that. You're probably not going to get in as much trouble as you would giving away someone's phone number and stuff like that. But we do have access to students' information. So she wasn't lying about that. However, I think she was able to answer the questions that people were curious about. Like, there was nothing that he asked that she was like, I can't answer that.
Yeah. Can't open her asking if I'll share some information else, hold it back. One of the things that I know is that he was, what was it? The one, I think, in high school, either this happened in high school or in college, but he put an app on some girl's phone.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he put an app on a girl's phone, and it was like a game app. Like, he had kind of talked into some girls into downloading, or he got their phone and downloaded it. And it had the tracking like Snapchat does.
Yes, I said that a long time ago about Snapchat, that if you don't, and just in case anybody's listening, make sure that whenever you update your phone that you go in and check your location services, because some of them on their default turns it back on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was doing some stuff like that.
That is so manipulative.
Yeah, he did that. He did the one with the he did something similar to Nayoung Ko's phone too.
I was going
to say, also broke into her house.
Yeah, do we know that was him now?
I'm sure we don't know for sure,
but it was.
But it probably was. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about the ID cards.
Yeah.
The only thing I know about
see nothing about that.
Yeah, the only thing I know about the ID cards is that when I asked about it, they were, what I was told was, not these victims.
But does that like implies that it could be other victims?
Exactly. And victims of what? Burglary, victims of peeping Tom, victims of SA. Like, I don't know what kind of victims. Just,
well, if it was a murder type, I would think that we would already know something, but that's a way to get them back to Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. And then there was the I believe, what else was there that I knew that hasn't come out yet? I knew the gift card thing. I knew that one for a while. I've been trying to tell people that for I've been throwing hints. If you guys go back 2 years ago, I was like, man, I wonder if he used a gift card. And then I would look, give you guys a look, like a little wink. Maybe you guys couldn't see the wink because I had the shades on. But, but I was like, I wonder if he used the gift card. I've been saying that for so long.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because then there would be less to track it to.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I would think that he would pay for the gift card in cash so that there wasn't even a credit card, unless he's really that dumb.
He could be. I mean, he paid for it with a credit card, but used his Amazon account.
Right, but a gift card and used his Amazon account. That makes no sense. You think he would have went as a guest that day or whatever?
That's like trying to hide your DNA in a place where everybody has your DNA.
Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
He went to his parents' house and hid out there trying to hide his DNA when his parents share his DNA. He's some special there. That's
he
for
really
sure.
is something else.
But yeah, let me think. I knew he had gotten some accusations at Northampton of following a girl. There was a cheerleader in high school that kind of looked like Kaylee that he had some problems with. There was supposedly a meet in a restaurant near Philadelphia where the Kohberger family had requested that the lights be low. They had some sort of secret meeting. I don't know how true that is. I just saw the reservation, and that in the reservation they said that
I wonder why
they wanted the lights low. What's that?
I wonder why they came all the way here to go out to eat.
Well, my assumption is this happened right around the Christmas time. I'm thinking that they met halfway because it wasn't in Philadelphia. It was halfway to Philadelphia.
Gotcha.
It was the halfway point.
Gotcha. It's only an hour and a half away. It's not that far, but to think there's probably Thai food around you type thing. Not you personally, around you.
Also, guys, so tomorrow around 3:00, I'm going to be on with Warning Label Nina. We're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's what he's should expect, but I'm going to be on her channel. Make sure you guys go and check it out.
I'll be there.
The parents knew. I think so. I think if so. Here's some things, right? We know that Bryan Kohberger's family was supposedly broke, right? They had financial problems. Yet dad flies out twice to, once from Moscow Pullman back to Pennsylvania after he helped his son move, and then again to fly over there to help his son flee. And that's my opinion. Now, from what I understand is he bought that ticket, it sounds like the day before he left. Right? That's what
Maybe he knew that his son was in trouble from school and stuff.
Yeah, but his son had been in trouble with school and stuff for a while. Almost the entire semester. They decided to do this after the BOLO went out.
Yeah.
Now, from my understanding,
trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but there just might not be. I don't know.
Right. My understanding is, though, this is just speculation, 100% speculation, that perhaps one of the daughters told the parents that they called the FBI, and mom got nervous and said they wanted Bryan back and sent dad to go get him. You know what I mean?
So do you think maybe he wasn't even going to come home type thing and dad went out and...
I don't know. I don't know if he ever had planned. Maybe there was a plan for him to go home for Christmas. I just don't think that plan was for Michael Kohberger to fly across the country and bring him back.
Gotcha.
BOLO means be out on the lookout.
Yeah, be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout. BOLO means be out on the lookout. It's kind of like a, what was it? What did they used to use back in the day? An APP? Something like that.
Yeah. They're going to put an an APP or EBP or something like that. I know it from a Tupac song. Yes, me too. Sarah will know. She'll know. She's in chat.
So that's what it was, which was I don't know what it's called, but BOLO is be out on the lookout for. So or be out on the lookout.
Be on the
And
lookout, I think, right?
what it is like a notice to law enforcement that if you see this vehicle or whatnot. Now, sometimes
APB.
APB,
All
yeah,
points bulletin. Thank
there
you.
you go,
guys.
APB. Yeah. My dyslexia was kidding, but yeah, APB. That's what it used to be called. But I got that from a Tupac song.
Mhm.
I was expecting that, when I joined the law enforcement, that we're gonna be like, oh man, where are the APBs at?
Nah.
Looked at me like, what are you talking about?
That's it.
I was like, oh, they're bolos.
That's funny.
Yeah, at least 8 months on the gift card thing. Yeah.
Oh, Papa Roger. They didn't say nothing about Papa Roger.
They didn't say a lot
nothing
about
lot.
they didn't say nothing about a lot of things, which upsets me because I would like to know if he was Papa Rogers.
Yeah, and they said that they had all those terabytes, and I feel like we didn't find any of them. We didn't even get a terabyte.
Well, a lot of that was the video surveillances from the cameras that they utilized that picked up his car. And a lot of that had irrelevant footage from outside of the scope of when the crime was committed or when they were looking for evidence. And so, a lot of it was irrelevant. It just, to me, it just makes it seem like the case was weak. I wish they would have presented more, because it sounds like the case was weak and that the prosecution got saved by this guy admitting his guilt.
Someone said that it probably wasn't brought up because it probably had nothing to do with the actual case. However, Papa Roger was the one that said about the sheath. So I feel like that could, but again, they probably didn't need it, like she's saying, because that's really not going to do anything as far as him saying I'm guilty. But I still want to know. Same thing with inside looking.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if Bryan Kohberger was lurking in the chats and on the Facebook groups and stuff. I would be more surprised if he wasn't.
I wrote something down about this. So remember before we were talking about how you thought maybe it wasn't because he wasn't posting at night. Maybe he wasn't posting at night because he was surveilling.
I mean, maybe.
Like, why would he want to be on his phone while he's surveilling?
Well, this was all after the murders.
Oh yeah, duh. That was straight A, stupid. I take that back, you guys. I didn't say that. I only had a half a coffee so far.
It's okay. Yeah. I have that impression on people. I get them to
I was like, wait, I was like, that's why he's not. And then that makes no sense.
Yeah, and so he may have been surveilling other people. To me, I thought it was weird that I asked around, right? And I thought it was weird that his last post was December 22nd, and the last time he commented on something was December 30th, which was right before Bryan Kohberger was arrested. My thoughts were, why would they stop shortly after they knew who Bryan Kohberger was?
Because it was him.
Because no, December 19th is when Moscow Police Department finds out it's Bryan Kohberger based off the IgG. Then shortly after that, it stops. I started thinking, do you think this is a cop?
I don't.
Or officers, law enforcement, knowing that this person probably is in the group chats, in the things.
No,
they're trying to get somebody to react.
No, the reason I don't is because I feel like Papa Rogers was the one that was reacting. Like, I feel like he was the reactor. Like, he was the one that people literally were like, you sound like a serial killer. So I feel like he was the reactor. So I just don't know that would have been that natural to somebody that's not.
But I mean, when you interview somebody or you interrogate somebody, sometimes you want them to think you're on their side. You say certain things that you don't believe or align with to get somebody to confess or somebody to have a reaction. You might tell somebody who committed a violent crime against a woman that, was it what she was wearing? Did that, those type of questions and stuff to try to give them reasoning as to why they committed the crime to elicit a response.
So they made a point. He was very aggressive in chat. I don't know that a law enforcement would, even if they were playing a role. I mean, maybe if they were playing a role, but nobody would know that it's law enforcement. Like, do you think that they would be that aggressive?
They could be, because at the end of the day, they're trying to elicit a response.
Well, this is why we need to find out.
Yeah, they're not going to elicit a response by saying, "Oh, I think it was a criminal justice student," or "Oh, I think it was just this or that." Especially if if they think that maybe they're talking to somebody who might know. So like, for instance, if it was me and I'm on there and I'm pretending to be somebody to elicit a response, if I saw somebody that maybe said something or maybe made me think that they were the real person, I might say something arrogant or attack them in a certain way to elicit a response from them. And if they're thinking that, all right, this is a serial killer type, what is the profile of a serial killer? They're narcissistic. They think they know everything. Maybe perhaps if we go in there with the same type of intensity and the same type of attitude, so to speak, it'll be matched by the real player.
Outside courtroom, like a lot of times. So I don't know what that means.
Where would I find that at? Somebody send that to me if that's true. Who's outside the courtroom?
Yeah, I see a few times they're saying it.
Let me see. I'm going to look up on my...
What about Brian Eaton?
Yeah, let me check that real quick. Let me see. Court TV. They were outside.
Oh, Court TV, someone said.
I'll check it out. Press conference. Outside.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we can't miss that.
Let me see. Let me see if this is happening. Let's see. I don't see anything live with Bryan Kohberger. Oh, yeah. I'm going to rewind it. There's Steve and Christy. Let me see if I can get to a spot where the press conference is actually happening. Oh, it seems like it just started.
Good afternoon. I'm Leander James from the law firm of James.
I wish they were louder.
I'm a victim's rights attorney. For the past few years, I've had the privilege and the honor to provide pro bono representation in criminal cases for parents and their needs and the loving mother of Madison Mogen. I will be giving a statement of gratitude to my mom. 962 days ago, we lost our man, our kind, loving, vivacious, caring daughter for a purpose of promise. We are grateful for the gift of her life, and we have grieved the loss of that life during each of these 960 days. We love you, Maddie.
This is Maddie's stepdad.
We are grateful for the gift of young, vivacious, promising lives of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. And we deeply, deeply mourn their senseless loss. We remain in solidarity with their families and friends. We continue to shower them with our prayers and support. We are grateful for their courage, love, and support they have given us and helped us stand up for our rights. We are grateful to the prosecutor, and his dedicated and caring team, including victim coordinators from the station, who have helped guide us through the sometimes confusing and disorienting legal process. Thank you for all your dedicated, diligent, and tireless commitment to justice and the successful outcome reached today. We support the plea agreement 100%. While we know there are some who do not support it, we ask that they respect our belief that this is the best outcome possible for victims, their families, and the state of Idaho. We extend our deep gratitude to the many law enforcement officers and staff who work tirelessly to obtain the critical evidence that brought justice today, including the Moscow Police Department, FBI, the Idaho State Patrol, and Lake County Sheriff's Department. We are deeply grateful to Judge Hickler and Judge John Judge before him. We thank you for your diligence, thoughtfulness, and judicial guidance. We appreciate the difficult work you have done to balance the rights of all involved and uphold the rule of law. You have our prayers and support throughout this case. We send our love and gratitude to the many family and friends who have supported us, cared for us, and helped us to heal our open emotional wounds.
Let me see if I can find the better version. All right. Maybe rewind this a little bit.
Idaho and we deeply, deeply mourn their senseless loss. We remain in solidarity with their families and friends, and we continue to shower them with our prayers and support. We are grateful for their prayers, love, and support that they have given us. They have helped us and sustained us during our darkest times. We are grateful to the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, and his dedicated and caring team, including victim coordinators, Tim and Stacy, who have helped to guide us through the sometimes confusing and disorienting legal process. Thank you for all your dedicated, diligent, and tireless commitment to justice and the successful outcome reached today. We support the plea agreement 100%. While we know there are some who do not support it, we ask that they respect our belief that this is the best outcome possible for the victims, their families, and the state of Idaho. We extend our deep gratitude to the many law enforcement officers and staff who worked tirelessly to obtain the critical evidence that brought justice today, including the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, the Idaho State Patrol, and the Lake County Sheriff's Department. We are deeply grateful to Judge Hickler and Judge John Judge before him. We thank you for your diligence, thoughtfulness, and judicial guidance. We appreciate the difficult work you have done to balance the rights of all involved and to uphold the rule of law. You have had our prayers and support throughout this case. We send our love and gratitude to the many family and friends who have supported us, cared for us, and helped us to heal our open emotional wounds. To the good people of North Idaho, who have showered us with kindness and support, we thank you. We also mourn today with you the recent tragic and senseless loss of two brave North Idaho firefighters. We extend our prayers and support to their families. You are not alone. We understand your pain. For all parents who have endured the loss of a child, we know recovery is a long and at times an almost unbearable journey. But you are not alone. And there is hope and there is healing. We thank those in the press who have respected our privacy and the grieving process and the privacy and grieving process of the families of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. To others in the press, we gently encourage you to do the same. We thank the many people across our nation and beyond who have reached out to us, prayed for us, and extended their kindness. You too have helped us on our journey to heal. We now embark on a new path. We turn from tragedy and mourning. We turn from darkness and uncertainty of the legal process to the light of the future. We have closure. We embark on a path of hope and healing. We invite all of those who have mourned with us to join us, and we wish you well. Thank you. I will now share a few words of my own. Over the past 2 years, I've been amazed and humbled by Karen and Scott's strength, endurance, and faith. They have uplifted me and so many. They founded a nonprofit to help others in the name of Maddie. They have been a beacon of hope.
I think he's the attorney for the Mogens. I thought he was a stepfather, but he's the attorney.
Out there looking for purpose and meaning in your profession, I invite you to join the effort of crime victim attorneys to bring victims justice with compassion, empathy, humility, and understanding. This case is not the end of violence. This case is not the end of lawlessness. We need your help to bring hope and healing to the innocent caught in the crossfire of life. Thank you all. Leander James, L-E-A-N-D-E-R, last name is James. Thank you.
And there's Miss Mogen, or Maddie Mogen's mom. I'm not sure if she's Miss Mogen or not still.
They look so much alike.
They do. They really do. and they're going back into the courtroom.
Sad.
Mm-hmm.
You've been listening to a press conference by the family of Maddie Mogen. That was their attorney. Her mother, Karen, her stepfather, Scott. You can probably see them right over here. We're going to walk a little bit as they walk, but they are walking as people follow, and they were devastated by this. Maddie Mogen was the only child of her two parents, Ben Mogen and Karen. She was mostly raised by her stepfather, Scott. And so it's just been a devastating loss for them. Maddie was a beautiful, beautiful young woman, as you know. And Bryan Kohberger, as we heard today and suspected, went straight to her bedroom that morning on November 13th, 2022, and took her life.
I hate that they're following them.
We're gathering here to see if they would like to speak or say anything. We're standing here to see if they would like to speak or say anything more.
They just
for a
did.
moment, but I think they're probably getting ready to leave and probably don't wish to speak.
I feel so
Karen
bad for
Kernodle has
all the
been
victims' family
very,
members.
very quiet throughout this whole process and has declined to speak throughout. So we know she's going to be appearing in the Amazon Prime documentary that's coming out. She has not wanted to grant interviews throughout any of this, but we will be seeing her in that program. So she's continuing to walk to her car, make her way home. We know she will be here for the sentencing on July 23rd. Well, it appears actually that they're going back into the courthouse at this point in time. Okay, so there you have it.
Guys, we've actually had Anjanette Levy on the show. You guys want to patch that?
Kohberger right now, as I told you, he's in the
It's in the
he's been held there for
in the
some time ever
playlist.
since the venue was changed to Ada County, and he will be sentenced on July 23rd. There will be no pre-sentence investigation in this case because he's getting 4 consecutive life sentences, life without parole. So that's what will be happening here. We will be back here on July 23rd covering that for you. He is going to prison forever for the murders of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. I want to thank our guests today, both Mark Weaver and Colin Schmidt, and thank you for submitting all of your questions and for watching us as always. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with us. You can go back and watch our coverage on YouTube from earlier today and watch the plea hearing. We'll see you back here next time.
That was weird when they said that she was raised mostly by her stepdad. What was that?
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't understand why they had to add that there. That was weird. Lincoln comes in 499 asking, can the public attend the sentencing hearing? Can the public attend the sentencing hearing? I think so. I think it's a public hearing that anybody can attend. Balance Freedom comes in 499 saying prosecution statement during the guilty plea hearing should be limited to the information that is not subject to any gag order in effect. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not the legal aspect expert for that. But I feel like they brought up some things that, although was brought up by Dateline, wasn't supposed to be have known before that. The amount of times that he was there, the day that he started, where he parked, those type of things. So I don't think they were bound by any gag order in today's hearing. Dee comes in 999. Thank you again. You pointed out a guy in the front shooting daggers at BK. Do we know who that was? I don't know who that was. I mean, it's because of the, did you see him? There was a guy that was right behind the prosecution, just was like intensely focused on Bryan Kohberger. And
I had it zoomed in on him, but that's probably why. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, I mean, the entire time. I think that I don't know. I couldn't tell because of the pixelated picture, but it almost looked like Xana's dad. If I could, I think that's who it may have been. The Curious Contrarian 199. We are all not Bryan Kohberger. I agree. That is something that is usually said by some of the pro-burgers or some of the folks that side with some of these accused. You know, Ricky Allen in the Delphi case, Richard Allen, he was one that there was one creator famously yelling, "We are all Ricky Allen," after he got arrested. And I've seen other cases where people put themselves in the positions of the accused and not the victims or the victims' family members.
Projection, like we were saying before, that's the Kohberger thing, right? They feel that they see themselves in them.
Exactly. And Miss J comes in with $5 saying, do you think the prosecution keep the gag so they could tell the families all the details before the world? That's a good question.
Probably not, because they didn't seem to take that into consideration with everything else.
Well, wouldn't that be a violation of their own order?
Oh yeah, they would have to have it lifted before they could tell anybody anything.
Right. So that would be a violation of their own order. So I doubt it. I doubt that's the reason behind it. I don't know why, to be honest with you. I think it should have been lifted. There's no purpose in hiding the information now. What are they going to do? They're going to find something out and increase the sentence? It's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Vona, I want to say thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, everyone.
Maybe we can do this again Friday night if you're not doing anything. If more information comes up.
All right, just let me know.
Will do. All righty, guys. Follow
Thank
Dr.
you,
Vona.
everyone. Have a good day.
Have a great one. Follow us tonight. You guys have a great time. Tomorrow, I will be airing out an interview that I'm having with Wandering Wolf, Mike from Wandering Wolf. He's worked with Jimmy Corsetti and Grant Hancock. He's gone to Göbekli Tepe and to some of these other ancient sites. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to interview him here in about a couple of hours, but that interview is going to be airing out tomorrow. So you don't want to miss it. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, guys. Peace out.